Hello, dear viewers. Elon Musk has announced the creation of a third party, or rather, the American Party, which could potentially become a third major political force. This move is aimed directly at his former friend and ally, Donald Trump, who, in Musk's opinion, isn't doing enough to save America today. The bottom line is that Musk is so offended that he has decided to launch his own party. How likely is this to succeed? And have there been similar examples in U.S. history? From this, we'll draw conclusions about whether a third party is even possible and what consequences it could have. This is all very important. We have to consider that nearly 40% of Americans today feel unrepresented. Neither of the existing parties in the two-party system, Democrats and Republicans, represents their interests. These are the independent voters. And again, the percentage of independent voters is at a record high. It's been a long time since we've seen numbers like this, so it seems like there's an opportunity. But there are many obstacles on the path to creating a new party, and that's what we need to talk about, along with the consequences. The Progressive Party was one of the first in modern history to try to break in as a third party and challenge the two behemoths. This brings us to the interesting presidential race of 1912. When former President Theodore Roosevelt, dissatisfied with the Republican nominee, William Taft, took control of Robert La Follette's Progressive Party, who was also a Republican splinter, and began his own fight for the presidency. Roosevelt's platform was revolutionary for its time: social insurance programs, an 8-hour workday, and voting rights for women. These ideas seemed radical then, but they essentially became the foundation of America's future social policy. Theodore delivered an incredible result. He won 6 states and secured 88 electoral votes, becoming the only third-party candidate in history to finish second in a presidential election. The Republicans received almost 1 million fewer votes, but the Democrats, led by Woodrow Wilson, were able to win the presidency. In the 1913 congressional elections, Roosevelt's party won 5 seats in the House of Representatives but none in the Senate. By the next elections in 1915, the Republicans began to regain their footing. The fact is, dear friends, that getting a party off the ground is very difficult in America. The system is set up so that the winner takes all in a state or district. So you can have 15 to 25% support, but that doesn't mean you'll win anything. A party with 30 to 35% will just take everything, and that's the end of it. Especially in the classic era of building physical party chapters, it was practically impossible to create a new party with the necessary infrastructure to span such a large country. Now, returning to Musk, he has his social media networks and other resources, so he might partially succeed. We'll talk more about that later. But there are tons of obstacles. Why not? In 1924, the Progressive Party once again showed impressive results under the leadership of Robert La Follette, gaining 16.6% of the vote. La Follette won his home state of Wisconsin and finished second in 11 other states, proposing the nationalization of railroads and high taxes on the wealthy. He wanted to build on Roosevelt's platform, but surpassing the success of the 26th president was difficult. Interestingly, the Progressives didn't return to the Republican Party but instead merged with the Democrats under Franklin Delano Roosevelt. The institution of third parties isn't new in the U.S. They often reflect the spirit of the times. Sometimes, members of parties like the Socialist Party of America were elected to the House of Representatives. The Farmer Labor Party was also quite successful, even winning a Senate seat at one point. But these are exceptions rather than the rule. Third parties often emerge, but they rarely have a significant impact. Every era has produced its political rebels. In 1968, George Wallace, with his American Independent Party, again, the American Party. The American Independent Party. You see the pattern, they all play on nationalist notes. Received 13.5% of the vote, won 5 southern states, and secured 45 electoral votes. Wallace became the last third-party candidate to win electoral votes, campaigning on a platform of segregation and states' rights, ideas that were already fading into history. The most dramatic modern campaign was the 1992 presidential race, when billionaire Ross Perot, with his Reform Party, received nearly 19% of the vote. That's 20 million Americans. Perot didn't win a single state, but his influence on policy was colossal. Think about it, he had almost 20% of the vote, 18.9% to be exact, but didn't win a single state. He had high ratings across the country but couldn't secure a victory anywhere. You know, in Europe, there's often a 5% or even 3 to 4% threshold. You can get into parliament, have your representatives, and build your presence in presidential elections, developing slowly. But in the US, such opportunities don't exist. Still, let's repeat, his influence was colossal. His obsession with the budget deficit forced President Clinton to focus on the issue. And the Republicans borrowed many of Perot's ideas for their contract with America in 1994, which also included budget-cutting proposals. It was this contract with America that allowed Republicans to regain control of the House for the first time in 40 years. Perot is a classic example of an ideological victory of a third party over the traditional parties. By the way, Trump himself once supported Perot's ideas. In the U.S. political landscape, there are two classic third parties, the Libertarian Party and the Green Party. It's clear which major parties they influence. The Greens have effectively shaped the Democrats' environmental policies, while the Libertarians tried to influence the Republicans' economic policies. But so far, as we can see, their success has been very modest. There has also been influence from independent candidates. Bernie Sanders is a very vivid example. His policies have a huge impact on the Democratic Party. It's telling that a candidate like Zahar Mamdani in New York, whom Trump now essentially calls a communist, could become a Democratic nominee. By the way, Trump himself once supported Perot's ideas. In the U.S. political landscape, there are two classic third parties, the Libertarian Party and the Green Party. It's clear which major parties they influence. The Greens have effectively shaped the Democrats' environmental policies, while the Libertarians tried to influence the Republicans' economic policies. But so far, as we can see, their success has been very modest. There has also been influence from independent candidates. Bernie Sanders is a very vivid example. His policies have a huge impact on the Democratic Party. It's telling that a candidate like Zahar Mamdani in New York, whom Trump now essentially calls a communist, could become a Democratic nominee. And now, the US has another third party, created by Musk. Well, its creation has been announced. It happened after a poll on Musk's network, X, asking if a new party should be created. Over 65% said yes. He announced yesterday that the American Party was created to return your freedom. Musk's motivation was clear. He called the existing system a uniparty, when it comes to bankrupting the country through waste and corruption. The final straw was Trump's support for a bill that increases the debt ceiling by $5 trillion. Musk declared, "Trump has 3.5 years as president, but I will be here for over 40 years. He might even create a rejuvenation startup." Clearly, he believes he can defeat Trump, just as the Thebans defeated the Spartans at the Battle of Leuctra. The American Party offers a platform for the 80% of centrist Americans who are dissatisfied with both traditional parties. Its core principles include fiscal responsibility, support for small businesses, a digital charter of rights, education in the hard sciences, and space technology. The party is also experimenting with ideas like a universal basic income. Musk's strategy is radically different from previous third parties. Instead of a nationwide campaign, he plans a laser focus on 2 or 3 Senate seats and 8 to 10 districts in the House of Representatives. The goal is to create a decisive voting bloc on contentious bills, an attempt to create a golden share party. The uniqueness of the American Party lies in its founders' unprecedented resources. Musk has a fortune of over $350 billion and controls a platform with hundreds of millions of users. This gives him opportunities that no third party in history has ever had. Again, the polls showed that there are many independents, especially among former Republican men. The political establishment's reaction was explosive. Trump threatened economic sanctions against Musk's companies and hinted at deportation. Republicans called it a disgrace. The Democrats, meanwhile, are maintaining a strategic silence. After all, they've won before when the Republicans were split by the Progressive Party, so this works for them. Musk truly holds a powerful tool of influence. Social media allows him to bypass traditional media platforms. Crowdfunding lowers financial barriers. Generation Z is less attached to the major parties, with 43% identifying as nonpartisan. However, the American system is fundamentally centered around two-party support. The biggest obstacle is the Electoral College. The winner-take-all system makes it virtually impossible for a third party to win. Again, even with nearly 20% of the popular vote, Perot won 0 electoral votes. Financial barriers are also a major hurdle. To receive public funding, a party must get 5% of the vote in the previous election or raise $5,000 in 20 different states. This means third parties always start at a huge financial disadvantage. In 2024, the major parties received $123.5 million each in public funding, while third parties got nothing. But Musk can help his party. After all, $350 billion is no small sum. Access to debates is controlled by the Commission on Presidential Debates, which requires 15% support in national polls. This makes it nearly impossible for third parties to participate. The last one to make it to the debate stage was Ross Perot in 1992. Although Musk hasn't announced presidential ambitions yet, that could change. Third parties in the U.S. will never have an easy path to victory, but they remain an integral part of American democracy. They act as political catalysts, forcing the major parties to evolve and adapt. We assume Musk wants to change the Republicans or replace them in the legislature. We don't know if he'll succeed. But he can certainly force the issue of the national debt, just as Perot did. Musk is an extraordinary character and can genuinely influence many things, even if he doesn't always succeed, as was the case with Dogecoin, for example. From an international perspective, the MAGA wave, which has often seemed detached from reality, and has essentially created a monopoly on power within the party, would be significantly weakened. The Democrats would gain more influence and return to a more central role. I'm not going to debate who I like more. I simply believe that both Democrats and Republicans have unfortunately failed to address the issues that hurt Americans and solve them seriously. They tend to skirt around issues, acting out of fear, and thereby prolonging the problems. This is their biggest weakness. I am very skeptical that America wanted to focus on the Pacific region. We need to provide at least some support to Europe. The US has only one ally in the world, and that's a fact. So, in principle, this isn't a catastrophe for us. And if Musk's actions force many in the Republican Party to start thinking and fighting for the moderate, independent electorate, that's good for us. A healing of the Republican Party is important to us. So, in my opinion, the situation is not bad and could have positive consequences. Although, again, the idea of replacing the existing traditional system, particularly with Musk's party, raises serious doubts. But there will be consequences. All the best to you. Goodbye.